Alright, what's up everyone? First off, I want to thank you for clicking on this video, taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I truly appreciate it. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about some common beginner coding mistakes that I see. And I think if you avoid these mistakes, you'll be able to learn to code quite a bit faster. These are mistakes that I see when I'm talking to people who are at the start of their coding journey, but these are mistakes I've also definitely made myself. I do have some notes in front of me, so I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my notes. Without further ado, let's begin. Alright. So the first mistake that I'd like to touch on is called tutorial hell, right? Tutorial hell is when you jump from one tutorial to the next, more or less copying and pasting code, right? Now tutorials definitely have their place, so I don't mean to say that all tutorials are bad, right? I think of tutorials like training wheels. They're good at the start, they're good to get you into the flow, but eventually you want to get to the point where you take those training wheels off. Now to drive this point home, let's think of an example, right? So let's think of a scenario where we have two engineers of equivalent skill level. They're roughly at the start of their journey. One of them builds a to-do application following a step-by-step YouTube tutorial, and the other one builds a to-do application, but they really do it from start to finish themselves. Now, this doesn't mean they can't reference, YouTube, Google, Stack Overflow, all that. They can reference whatever they want, but they're not following a tutorial that guides them every step of the way, right? Now, the person who did not use the tutorial, say, both these engineers go into a job interview and the interviewer starts asking them, the ins and outs of the code, about deployment, etc. The person who didn't use the tutorial, they'll be in a much better place to answer those questions because they would have internalized that knowledge. The person following the YouTube tutorial, they may have internalized it, they may not have, because even if at any point they were lost and didn't understand something, all they had to do was copy and paste the code from the content creator, and they would have had the to-do application built. So the project-based person is going to be in a much better place to answer the interviewer's questions. Also, project-based work where you're not having your hand held every step of the way is a lot like what the real life work is like, right? For most software engineering projects or problems that come up on the job, rarely is there a step-by-step guide that you can follow. Maybe if you get lucky every once in a while, the whole answer is on Stack Overflow or something. But generally speaking, you're going to get a set of requirements from a client, your manager, whoever it may be. And from there, it'll be your job to either clarify requirements or to start taking those requirements and turning them into a web application or feature or whatever it may be, right? So getting your hands dirty and really building is the best way I've found to get knowledge to stick, which is why I definitely recommend it. And I think tutorial hell is something that really can prevent people from diving into that deep end and getting their hands dirty, right? So I think escaping from tutorial hell and working on project-based work, thinking about something you want to build and building it can really expedite the learning process. The second mistake that I'd like to touch on is lack of depth. And this mistake is twofold, right? So first thing that I see is, people saying they're going to learn Python one week, Java the next week, C the next week, and, C++ the week after that. The issue here is they're getting a lot of breadth, and breadth is definitely not bad, right? Especially at the start when you're not sure exactly what you want to do. It's good to have breadth to see what speaks to you and what doesn't. Maybe front-end development speaks to you, maybe back-end development speaks to you, maybe web development doesn't speak to you at all, and you want to go into DevOps, whatever it may be, right? So I think at the start, it definitely is very good. But the goal is to, get to a point where you found your specialty and then you start going deep in that specialty, right? So let's again go through an example. Most of the software engineering roles you see on, LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever it may be, they're usually looking for someone who has depth on a certain aspect, right? So there are full stack engineers who have front end and back end, knowledge. So they're more generalists. But generally speaking, the positions are like, okay, DevOps engineer or backend engineer or front-end engineer or security engineer, whatever it may be. And what they're looking for in those positions is depth in that knowledge, right? So for a front-end engineer, they want someone who has depth on the front-end knowledge. So say we have, again, these two equivalent engineers, but one of them has a lot of breadth and the other one doesn't have as much breadth, but has more depth, right? And say it's a front-end role. So this person has depth in front-end, whereas this person has breadth, so they know a little bit of front end, but they don't have the same depth, right? When they go into that interview, that person with that depth of knowledge in front end is much more likely to get that position, right? Because they're going to have, now of course there's like behavioral aspects and other things in an interview as well that we can't account for with this example. But generally speaking, the person with the depth in the front end knowledge, they're going to have a lower ramp up period. They're going to be able to be productive on that team faster, and they'll be in a better position to answer the interviewer's questions as well, right? So that's what I found, that depth of knowledge is better to get hired faster. Now, I mentioned this problem was twofold. So the other side of this problem is when people jump from resource to resource. And this is a mistake I've made countless times. Is when, say you found your specialty. So say front end is your specialty and you say, I want to, specialize in front end. And then you find like a Udemy course or whatever. And then you start that. And then 2 weeks later, you find a better resource, a book or another Udemy course. Then you jump on that. Then you find a better resource, you jump on that. And this cycle continues. Now I'm going to drive this point home on why this is an issue with an example apart from coding. So let's think about, basketball. Say we have one person and they get like a good resource on learning basketball. Say it's a book. And they take the knowledge from that book and then they focus on implementing that in real life. So they actually get a ball, they focus on dribbling, they focus on shooting, and they play on the court against other people, right? Whereas we have another person and they get a great resource on learning basketball. 3 weeks later, they get an even better resource. 3 weeks later, they, are focusing on another resource now, but they haven't put in that hands-on time as much. Who do you think will become a better basketball player faster? Most likely the person who's actually on the court, actually dribbling, actually shooting a lot more, right? So again, it's all about that hands-on experience. Nothing makes knowledge stick like hands-on experience. So I'm not saying go for a bad resource. Definitely find a good resource, read the reviews, everything. But once you've found a good resource, run with it and focus on that hands-on experience. So honestly, all these mistakes can really be summarized down to the fact that when you have an opportunity to get your hands dirty, take it, and run with it. That's how I found that, I learned the best. And had I just focused on that from the start, I would have gotten a job a lot faster. Now I'd like to touch on my story a little bit and really hone in on where I feel, I made these mistakes and how I could have gotten a job a lot faster had I not made these mistakes. So I definitely used to hop from resource to resource every few weeks, right? And I was always looking for that one great resource. So I would be like, okay, there has to be that one resource out there that's just going to make this easier for me to understand, really make the knowledge stick. And the truth is that, I never got to a point where I ran into one resource which ruled them all and was like the best one, right? Ultimately, I learned little by little from all these resources, and I would have learned all the knowledge that I learned quite a bit faster had I just taken one good resource, ran with it, and again, focused on the hands-on implementation. Now, it took me about 8 months to get hired, right, or rather get my first job offer. I actually ended up not taking that first job offer, but it took me 8 months to get my first job offer, right? And I think I could have done it in anywhere from 4 to 6 months had I just focused on depth. And the reason I say that is because when I got that job offer, there was nothing super impressive on my resume. I had a few front-end projects, which were, there was a landing page and maybe one other project, which I think was a bunch of Pokemons, and you clicked on the Pokemon and made their sound or something. So it was silly projects, right? But it was all stuff I could have easily built in about 4 months had I focused on depth, right? And I could have potentially gotten hired within 4 months. Now, it took me longer to get my first job offer, and I didn't take that one because I ended up focusing on my computer science degree instead. But yeah, I definitely could have saved a lot of time there. And by the 8 month mark, maybe I could have gotten an even better job offer, because that job offer, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't enticing enough for me to consider taking that job full time and doing school part time, which is basically what I was considering, right? So yeah, these are all the things that I wanted to point out today. I really hope this helps you out and helps you get to where you want to be in your coding journey a little bit faster. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.